important part of being in this world, especially in anatomy and physiology and in being in, I'll say, the health. I hate the term wellness because we're not made for wellness. We're made for greatness. But
I like that.
being in the space, that there's a responsibility that we have, from a content standpoint, but also from a creation standpoint, that you should be creating with the highest levels of efficacy to create the highest levels of outcome. Because if you're working on just creating income, you shouldn't be in the space. And
There's people listening, and like what you say matters.
Right?
Who would have guessed?
Like you have see, and it's the big part of understanding that we are all of influence, right? Regardless of who you are, regardless of where you are, that we are all of influence. You could be homeless and have your little sign begging for money, but you have influence, and calculating that and actually tracking it has been the fun part. But even teaching kids, like Christina, my wife, wrote in her first book a couple of years ago, my favorite quote from any philosopher I've ever read from. And she's a quantum physicist and a nanobiotechnologist, so it kind of applies into how she sees things. But she wrote, "We are each an imperfect piece to a perfect puzzle." And when you start extrapolating on that and you apply it into business, it's that ripple effect. It's the butterfly effect that everyone wants to talk about. But it brings it back to that soul piece. Our sole purpose is to become our best piece. And then we're not made to connect to everybody. And it's the application to social media that kind of doesn't apply, but it speaks to why nano influencers are so valuable, that you don't have to connect to everybody. You only need to connect to those that are made to connect to you. And then through that, you're going to have the outreach to everybody else. So understand that, your words have power, your influence has power, and do it accordingly. Because if you're doing it for the money, you could end up hurting people and causing some problems.
What a beautiful way. I mean, that's something good to remind even me. There are moments where it's just like, well, we got to have more podcasts. We have to do more things. Like we got to have more volume. But it is nice to always step back a little bit and say, like, what are we really doing this for? And what are we really talking about? And is this really for the right reasons? And I think what feels good, at least feel good to me, is like, whenever I walk out of here, usually not always, sometimes I feel like I suck on podcasts, but I come out and I'm like, man, I had a really good conversation with somebody, and I hope somebody like learned something.
That's the key. I think in any interaction of having that one moment of, oh, we got that one thing, we got that point across,
It's a nugget.
It was beneficial, because from a quantum standpoint in communication, our cells are talking right now.
Yeah.
Right. So in understanding epigenetics, that a positive interaction between two people will actually resonate cellularly for 7 years. And it was interesting. Do you remember, was it Cat when he was on Shannon Sharp show? Cat Williams at the beginning of the year, or last year, when he went bonkers and kind of blew the whistle on everything that's going on.
Yeah.
But he said, and he's read the Emerald Tablets. He's one of the best read people I've ever talked to.
Insane.
Dude's freaking wicked smart, right?
Crazy.
And he and Terrence Howard. I was talking to Terrence about this a couple weeks ago.
You talked to Terrence? Wow, how wild.
And they're typecast because of the melanin in their skin, right? But Kat talked about reading the Emerald Tablets, and that he lives in 7-year segments, and he's lived 7 lifetimes. And I guarantee you that 99.9% of the audience didn't catch what he said, because cellularly, we know that our cells turn over every 7 years.
Yeah.
So he's talking about that 7-year cycle and going, he's living in accordance to his cellular turnover. And he's like, I've done this 7 times already in this life.
That's pretty beautiful.
Yeah. And you go, okay, so you can plan accordingly. You go, okay. He's constantly trying to teach, right?
How interesting.
And like he said, he's like, I get to infiltrate the Illuminati, and then I run back and tell y'all. I'm like, wait a minute, I do that too. So it's bridging that anatomy and physiology and understanding what we are, and then starting to apply it into who we are. That's going to continue to be the fun part. But the aspects of intellect and conversation that consumers And the same in education. You start in kindergarten, then you go to elementary school and middle school and high school, and then advanced education. That we're, especially when it comes to health and performance, we've been in the elementary school, middle school phase, and some of us are, trying to teach elementary school and getting people to start to understand some concepts, so then they'll start seeking higher levels of education. And it's difficult because of the noise that exists within this space, and that you see popular influencers, and that if you have a background, in an educated background in anatomy and physiology and performance and health and supplementation, you're going, and I'd work with a lot of doctors on this, they're like, you listen to so-and-so and 60+% of what he says is wrong. And you're going, this is terrible. But it's like, okay, they're doing it for the money, they're doing it for this, but they're getting an audience that's starting to become aware, and they're becoming educated. So then they're eventually going to find smarter things over time.
Because I don't think you can fake it for so long. Like, your people are going to find you out. And so, like, you have this whole, like, you're producing a lot of content, you're making a lot of money, and then now you sit down, or maybe that individual is now in that algorithm, they're getting more scientific stuff, and then they start being like, this is very different than what was being showed over there. Like, and then they get more of this and less of that, and they're like, okay, wait, what's going on here? Is this person really all that? Or
like, wait a minute, these things are not alike in what they're saying. Like one of these individuals, Christina and I were with. Well, I wasn't allowed to go upstairs because I've made some comments about them publicly, apparently, that they didn't like. But she went up to do an interview in Miami, and she's having a conversation. I don't even know if they're going to air the podcast, but she's talking about the P450 pathways.
I don't know about the P450 pathways.
You don't?
No, I don't.
So
tell me about them.
So
educate me.
So the P450 pathways is basically your nervous system's communication methods and everything that goes through the liver.
Okay.
Right. So your liver is processing everything. So this is why when people talk about MTHFR and methylation, that they're saying, oh, well, you need methylated vitamins and everything. You don't. You actually just need to remove the mercury and allow your liver to start functioning properly. So those P450 pathways are basically the communication pathways of when something is metabolized and broken down, that it's distributed through your nervous system, and the communication goes. And,
fun.
And it was funny watching that conversation take place. And he's like, because you have them talking about methylation and everything, but they're only talking about this one thing. I'm like, well, you're talking about it to sell methylated B vitamins, but that's not what methylation's about. And when you understand, so the interesting part, when you start diving into this, and we have similar backgrounds, which is going to be fun to dive into. Correct. But when you look at environmental toxicology, because I grew up in an integrated veterinary practice, so I've been studying health and nutrition for 45 years in humans and animals.
Oh, cool.
But my last 20 years has been focused on environmental toxicology, because I had this moment 20 years ago where a friend called me and said, hey, you got to look at this product, check this thing out. And God went, that's your path. And everything flipped from being about diet, lifestyle, and exercise to understanding, at least for me, and I haven't been proven wrong yet, that the equation for real health and performance is just addition by subtraction, right? We can't add anything in until we remove what's causing the underlying problem. And one of the first large pieces of literature I found 20 years ago when I started researching this was published by the World Health Organization in 1976.
Damn.
Before they were hijacked. Right. Damn. So this is
this is real.
This is a fun thing to use right now, right? That if you want to play the game, and if Bobby wants to play the game in the Senate with everybody and say, look, you guys know the World Health Organization is truth, right? We know it's probably not anymore because it's been a little bought and sold down the river. Just a hair. But you guys want to say the World Health Organization is truth, and they're this organization that's amazing, and they publish all this data, and they've done all this stuff, and they're outstanding, and you guys stand behind them regardless of what they say. Yes. Great. In 1976, the World Health Organization published a compilation of research looking at data back to the 1950s and 1960s, that they found that one single substance was the primary cause of, at the time they knew, about 85% of all chronic degenerative disease. One substance. Mercury.
Really?
And they were looking at a lot of the data from the 1950s and 1960s because of the use of thimerosal. When they introduced vaccines to the market in 1938, they were using thimerosal, which if you go back to, some of the things that, other people have talked about with the Illuminati and controlling people, that they would use soft metals to control our minds. And mercury happens to be the worst neurotoxin known to man. And you add lead and aluminum and you basically have the trinity of chaos. But mercury alone is known to cause this cascade of virtually everything that we're dealing with. You go, well, they knew that in 1976. So if you knew what the cause of the problem was and you never addressed the cause, and you know that one cause is the worst neurotoxin, second most deadly chemical known to man, you're putting it in people's mouths as amalgam fillings, you're injecting it into people as an adjuvant into vaccines, because the important part so we don't get assassinated is vaccines aren't bad. Vaccines aren't bad, right? Some of them, maybe a couple, actually have some efficacy and benefit. But the adjuvants, the additives that they use in them to knock down your immune system are not good. And then when you add those in and layer them over time, you're just building up the body burden, so eventually someone's going to tip. And we used to think that about 30 to 40% of these environmental toxins were passed, from mother into the womb through the placenta, and that number was off. It's actually around 70 to 80%. So the greatest way to clean a woman up is to get her pregnant. If you want, ladies, listen,
right there.
Ladies, you're not going to like this, but you're going to like this. Women can do this detox program. Men can't get pregnant. And if you're really toxic, your body will push all of those toxins into the fetus. You'll miscarry. You'll kill the fetus. You'll get cleaned out. You'll flush that out, and then you can do it again.
Wild.
That's horrible, but true, right? That if you're an absolute dumpster fire, right, you're loaded with chemicals,
ends up eating
you're going to kill that life that exists within you, because your body sees the placenta not only as something that it needs to feed, but it's also using it as a trash can, because it's an outside body inside your system, and it's going to push all of that stuff in it. So when we look at Down syndrome and sickle cell trait, which is interesting, and
you're making a correlation that is very interesting to me.
It gets really weird real quick. These are genetic issues, but we know it's talked about fairly heavily with women over 40 that have a baby for the first time. Their risk of Down syndrome is exponentially higher than women in their 20s and 30s. That's only because the environmental exposure that they've had in their lives up to that point hasn't been addressed typically. So when they get pregnant, they dump everything into that fetus, and there's no way it can survive. So you look at Downs, but you look at sickle cell trait, and you don't see many black kids with Down syndrome, and you don't see white kids with sickle cell trait.
We're going somewhere. I like it.
Right? You don't typically see these. They have the same cause.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
So very, very early, I had to look this up because I hadn't looked it up in 20 years, because I always thought, okay, these are genetic conditions and they're just passed down, and this is the problem. Well, it's already published on PubMed. This has been researched a long time ago. Very, very early fetal developmental exposure to mercury actually causes the SNPs, the chromosomal damage that causes Downs or causes sickle cell trait.
Never mind. I thought I knew you were going, and I definitely didn't.
And it took a turn, right?
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah. So you go, holy shit. This is
how weird.
We have one primary etiology that is really at the forefront of all of this dysbiosis that exists within our life. And if we don't address that, the crazy part with what mercury does is when you're then exposed to other heavy metals or other environmental toxins, it actually amplifies the negative effects of all these other things as well. But it's so nefarious that it hides so well, you're not going to see it. You can't find it in a blood test. You're not going to find it in a urine excretion analysis unless you're chronically exposing yourself, and you're not going to find it in hair. I mean, you can do biopsies. You can do a brain biopsy or a liver biopsy or kidney biopsy while you're alive, and you're not going to like that. But
not going to be fun.
You can find it. but everything else is amplified by its presence, and it creates this cascade of symptomology over time, and it does it differently in every individual. So you have this cause, you have this cascade of symptoms, and if we were going to start a business and say, okay, great, maybe we can create all these different chemicals and substances and we can use them to treat these symptoms, and we'll teach people to give them a diagnosis based on a group of these symptoms. Then they can prescribe these specific things that are based on these specific symptoms, and we know that it's never going to address the cause, and it could create a cascade of a different additional symptomology based on those substances, which is going to lead to an additional diagnosis, which is going to lead to additional prescriptions. We can make some money on this deal.
That's playing some chess there.
It is.
It really is.
It's a really long-term, multi-trillion-dollar business plan.
Where does this exist in the world? Where do you think?
I've not seen it really outside of the United States very much. From traveling a lot, I don't see it in Cyprus. Italy, not so much. French, no, they have great foie gras. It's just something that's really interesting that's been focused here, right? Because other countries, and there's a game to it, and there's a play to it.
And I don't really understand the game of the play. I really don't. Like, it seems so simple to me to educate people to take care of the root cause of things, but this is me as a scientist when I'm like, okay, well, this causes this. If we get rid of this,
we don't have this.
Then we don't have this. That seems pretty simple. Like,
we would say that's a good thing.
Yeah. But, mission accomplished.
But so if we look at other countries, so if you go to Canada, if you go over to Europe, they have universal health care, right? The only country that is primarily focused on a payer-based system happens to be ours. So think of that from a population management standpoint. If the government, the country that you live in is having to spend money to keep their population healthy, they're going to make decisions a little bit differently than a country that has a stock market that is solely, almost primarily predicated on that entire ecosystem. That if you have health insurance companies, you have hospital systems, doctor systems, the pharmaceutical industry that's all predicated on sick care, and their stock prices are solely predicated on growing quarterly revenue, not based on eliminating those expenses, because healthy people don't have health problems, and you people would save a fuck ton of money by being healthy, but those stock valuations would plummet.
And then now what are those industries going to do?
And they would have to go, well, we've got to reorganize. But if we did it right, the GDP of the country, productivity, production in this country, we'd have people that could actually work, because a quarter of our population is on so many fucking drugs they can't even function.
Mental wellness.
Big word, simple solution, not going to be addressed by the system, right? And it's something that we got to see shift here in 2024. That we had an election that was a movement of people that had a concept of make Americans healthy again, right? And make America great again. Okay, great. Never heard .gov at the end of either one of those. Haven't heard it yet. So if you suck them all into politics, you're in the abyss. Good luck.
Damn.
Go play in the dark, because you're not going to get out, right? So where does this move towards healthcare, real health?
Yes.
Right? Not healthcare, not go to the doctor, not sick care, not sick care management, not all of that. Where's it going to come from? It's going to come from people. It's going to come from entrepreneurs. It's going to come from businesses that are private, because if you're public, if you're on the stock market, you're enslaved, right? And we're going to see this real interesting test, because I think Luigi's trial is still going on, but you've got this kid that had a back surgery, and you've probably talked about this before. Top 5 things someone should never do. Don't get cut on, right? When it comes to back issues, don't get cut on.
Oh my God. Like the worst.
You've seen that.
The worst. The worst.
Can we give a special shout out to Tiger Woods?
Shout out Tiger Woods.
Yeah, Tiger, you should have never gotten cut on, bro.
Never.
Had this dude's training with the SEALs, doing all this crazy stuff because he had free time and he's like a freak athletically, and he's the perfect blend, right? Of what Robin Williams said. You've got the Filipino, Asian influence and the power of the black population, and you mix them and you go, and then you get the tiger. But he could have just done some inversion training initially and said, okay, let's take some stress off these discs. Let's not do some of those. You're going to spend a lot of time in the pool. You're not going to be doing weights. Lengthen things out, stretch things out.
Eldoa training. I don't know if you've heard.
No.
Eldoa is specifically working around separating or making space within joints. So the first course just goes over upper body, and then the second course just goes over the spine. Like, we're looking at every area of the spine, and then the downturn effect of these things down to our feet. I mean, like, all the way down. So you can do Eldoa training. Like, there's a lot of options out there that you don't need to get cut for. But getting cut changes your life for the rest of your life in a downward sequence forever.
Done. What happened to his career? Over. He would have won 357 Masters by now. And went from, okay, he's a little sore, he's hurting a little bit, and Tiger wants to run off the road now. Right? And you see it across the board. And I don't think people understand that when you go see a specialist and you have a medical system that's predicated on breaking things up into specialties to isolate people into a specific market, because then you're not dealing with the system holistically, you're dealing with it in segments. And it's just like having a vehicle that if you've got rattling in your car, right, and something doesn't sound right, and you take it to a transmission specialist, he's going to find something wrong with your transmission. Then you're going to spend some money on your transmission. And then you get your car back and you're driving it. You're like, still rattling a little bit. You're like, well, maybe it's the engine. Well, I'm going to go get the engine checked out. You're going to have some stuff wrong with the engine. Nope, still rattling. Well, you know what? I need to get the brakes checked. Okay, you're going to get new brakes. Get the brakes done. Still rattling a little bit. Then you realize that the back door wasn't closed all the way, and you go, shit, you got me.
Here's right? 10 grand, 20 grand later.
20 grand.
I'm
It's
so
like,
sorry.
I got basically a new car, so that's good, but I wasn't planning on doing this, and all I had to do was that for right now. So there you go.
I feel like most problems are that quick of a solution. Like, if it really is that simple. Like, people that are constantly having headaches, and then they're on a medication, it's like, were you drinking enough water?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, God.
Oh, wow. Weird. If you just had a little bit more water, you would have gotten rid of that. And so you wouldn't have been so depressed. Then so you would like.
Well, especially being here in Vegas.
Yeah.
Right. One, you're in the desert. And two, people have a lifestyle that they're able to go out. And a lot of times they're able to drink a little bit more than most. And I have actually a friend that's here in town. He has a gambling website, makes a ton of money doing different stuff. He's been interviewed by Gary Brecka a couple times because he's one of Gary's biggest successes, because he lost like 120 pounds, and he used to be a Chippendale, and then came here over COVID. When it started in 2020, added a bunch of weight because he went on the buffet tour, and then he's like, I got to lose all this weight, so uses a bunch of peptides and stuff, loses a bunch of weight, and then has full blown alopecia. And he's like, I'm so healthy right now because I lost 120 pounds. I'm like, bro, you have full blown alopecia. You're not healthy. And so I was like, what we're going to do this little process. We're going to start cleaning stuff up, but we got to go really slow. And after the first day, he's like, oh my God, my blood pressure's going up, and I'm tracking my blood pressure, and it's really bad. I'm like, okay. Steph, you like sports cars? He's like, yeah. I'm like, so if your sports car needs 8 quarts of oil and you're driving on 5, what happens? He's like, oil pressure goes up. I'm like, we good? He's like, I get it. Drink more water. And so the next morning, he wakes up, drinks a gallon of water, calls my guys in the office. I feel amazing right now. I'm like, you're dehydrated. Step one.
That's
step one.
Yeah, step one. People want to go to step number 10 when they haven't even looked at step number 1. Or like, but I feel like everybody knows step number 1.
We know we've been told step 1, but Do you know how much money is in step number 1?
Fucking none.
Well, there is. We need to start a water company.
Never mind.
There's fucking billions and billions and billions. Hey, let's call Sean. Let's do glass water bottles. We'll call it good. We'll do Vegas water. We'll suck up Lake Mead, and we'll call it fuck it bottled water.
And
it's gonna taste
sell.
like a little chlorine, and you're gambling on drinking this because it's from Vegas. Here you go. But you look at that and you go, okay, we're 70% water. So step 1 should be, let's get that in line.
Yeah.
Right. The interesting part with mercury is mercury on a cellular basis, actually in mercury toxicity inhibits cellular movement of water. So your cells actually can't hydrate properly. So instead of looking like grapes, they look like raisins. Right. So addressing those components and then getting the body good water. Right. And understanding that this whole alkaline water, hydrogen water, can we call bullshit on this? Because we have backgrounds in anatomy and physiology.
What happens when you add an extra hydrogen to water, if you don't mind? Just answering that real quick.
H2O and H3O? Little,
yeah. Are those different?
Yeah, just the hair. But so when this whole hydrogen water craze started a couple years ago, when Gary went on Rogan and talked about drinking hydrogen water in a bottle, I called Paul, who owns Echo. Right, he's a naturopath. He was one of the leaders in research initially with water ionizers, so the pH conversation. Then he started to realize that it's not about pH; it's just about the hydrogen aspect. I'm like, okay, this makes sense because pH is potential hydrogen. Okay, I'm with you. I'm tracking.
Yeah.
So I got a hold of him, and I'm like, okay, we can look at doing a collab, but I have a question. Why do people need hydrogen water? And where is hydrogen produced? It's like in the gut, but people have dysbiosis in their gut. Their guts are all screwed up. So if you drink hydrogen water, it'll help your gut heal over like 6 months. I'm like, well, the gut regenerates every 2 weeks. So if you just take care of the gut, you fix the biome, and you allow the leaky gut to heal, then what? He's like, well, then the hydrogen water would work better, but you really wouldn't need it because then if you're putting in, the good leafy stuff and those magnesium-rich components that you're supposed to have in your diet, your body produces endogenous hydrogen anyway because we're basically a hydrogen reactor. So if you're drinking a bunch of hydrogen water, just like these people doing injections, you're telling your body that it doesn't have to do it anymore, so you're actually going to create a cascade of chaos. He's like, yeah, that would be true too.
Too much hydrogen could be a real problem here. Oh, weird.
So you're saying there's this whole thing about homeostasis and balance. If we start fucking around with things that we're not supposed to, we might have problems here.
And then we have another opportunity for maybe some more medication or some more. Yeah. I don't know. Like it leads to something else, right?
You're gonna need this. You're gonna need this. It's like, oh, now my stomach hurts. I need to take antacids. Do you? Or do you just need to fix the dysbiosis and get us back to where we're supposed to be and where we come from, and allow the body to start doing what it's supposed to do and feed it right?
Just I like to tell most of my clients, like, just don't be an asshole, don't be a cunt, like, just eat okay. Like, what it is. Like, if you're having pizza and donuts and garbage, your body's gonna feel the effects of that, and it's not gonna feel very good.
You're gonna feel like shit. You're gonna perform like shit. So just know
you won't be able to think well. Your brain doesn't digest, or we don't digest it well, so I can't think well. So like why are we doing this to ourselves?
Like every once in a while is okay, and if you're gonna do it, because some things do taste good.
Of course,
then do it a little bit.
Of course,
you like cake, have a piece of cake.
Have a piece
every once in a while, not every day. Don't eat the whole thing. You're good.
Yeah,
you can have those things in moderation.
100%.
But if you understand that you're a performance engine, and you're doing your work to have it perform at its peak, then do the things that are going to allow it to perform better. Because if you're monetizing that, then it's quite valuable. Yeah. And you can ask anybody with money. And this is the real interesting part of what I've learned from having a bunch of my friends that are worth billions and billions of dollars and royalty over in the Middle East and the GCC, because they don't really think about money. They really
they don't.
They print it.
Yeah.
Like-
They don't think about it.
they're like, yeah,
We just have it. It just.
yeah, it's like
I mean, just it.
we
It,
got that
it
part
just is. Yeah.
but there's one thing that they value. Well, actually, there's a couple things that they value over in the GCC: falcons, camels, horses, women, in that order, and their health.
Yeah.
Right? So you can have all the money, you can sacrifice your health in order to gain money, and then when you get the money, you realize you want to buy your health back.
Always.
And a lot of times
Always.
you can't, you don't get the check.
You're so far. You're so far.
It's like you've sacrificed enough of that, or you haven't listened, to your body, or you've done things to your body during that time that then when you've accumulated that and you get to the point of, oh, well, here's what that's going to cost you. Can you pay the bill? No? All right. Well, time to go.
Yeah.
And, you can look at that as the Steve Jobs approach. Just Steve Jobs wouldn't be that old right now.
Yeah, he would
Do
not.
you know what Apple would be if that dude was still around? I would actually want another iPhone.
And then you get the next
the
one.
iPhone would not be what it is right now. It would
Yeah.
be fucking holograms coming out of the phone. And you'd be like, the phone's sitting on the table, and you're like, okay, call that person. And they pop up like Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're like, yo, what's up? And he's like, yo.
Yo.
That would be what Apple's at. Other than that, now it's just for the last 10 years, oh, we did this update, and we changed the text a little bit, and we upgraded the pixels on the camera by 4.
And the voice speaks to you louder.
Yeah.
It doesn't listen to you all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that bitch is listening.
Oh, they just got that class action lawsuit for $93 million, which is, barely a slap on the hand. But
Was it 93 million or 93 billion?
I thought it was 93 million.
They don't care.
No, they don't care.
Yeah.
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 I mean, what is that going to do?
It's like,
Absolutely
oh, wait,
nothing.
it's like, hold on. Yeah, we just made that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They have more than that in cash
Yeah.
on hand.
Yeah.
They're fine.
They're making that an interest monthly, and they're like, oh, do we need to write a check? And that's the same thing for the pharmaceutical industry. What we looked at over the last 5 years, and people are complaining about, oh, why would they release these vaccines? Why would they do this? And I'm like, well, if you look at what Pfizer made. Now, my wife was working at Pfizer like 20 plus years ago, and the former director of the CIA, when he was in-house, was like, look, there's not going to be any nuclear war anymore. It's going to be biological, and we'll be at the forefront of how we handle it. Interesting. Huh.
Weird statement.
But if you and I were to construct a business, we created a widget, and we're going, okay, you know what? Maybe we help manufacture this need to talk about this widget and how valuable it was going to be, and we'll get everybody to use it. And then we're going to get everyone to buy it. Maybe we'll get the government to subsidize it and do all this stuff. And we're going to make $50 billion over the next 4 years. But it's going to cost us $6 billion in penalties because of maybe we'll find out later on that it needs a black box warning and it's really terrible and it has all these complications and no one should have done it in the first place. We'll get into that. Ask my wife we'll talk about Bristol Myers Squibb.
Okay. Yeah.
But you go, would we trade $50 billion in top line revenue for $6 billion in fines?
That sounds like a pretty good net. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a math major.
I know we didn't do math.
But
You go,
it is a potential.
I would take that trade. It's like,
Yeah.
okay. And that's pharma. That's the business. It's like,
Take the hits, expect the hits.
yeah, you know
and
what's
just
going to happen.
Eat it.
So my better half was at Bristol Myers Squibb. Let me see. We've been together for 10, so it's 20. Well, shit, she was at Pfizer almost 30 years ago. And so about 20, I think it was about 20 years ago, she's at Bristol Myers Squibb, and she's been at the highest levels of medical science and clinical science and research. So they were doing work with HIV and studying how to address HIV. And there was a concept, this belief that if you could give the body a virus and your cells had one virus, then you can't contract another virus. So a way to treat HIV was to give the body something else, so then you couldn't contract HIV. And they created this delivery mechanism using murine, right? So mouse DNA, right? Because mouse DNA is one of the closest to human DNA, so that's what they're using in this delivery mechanism. So they called it like mRNA. And so what they had done initially was take this delivery mechanism and use RA, like a rheumatoid arthritis virus, we'll modify it a little bit, inject that with people, and see if it would create these spikes on the cells to give someone an infection so they couldn't get HIV. And the initial research was kind of ugly. So it caused infertility, it caused strokes, it caused cancer, and it pretty much killed everything in about 7 years. So they knew, like, can't do that. It's not good. It's not good. It's like 100% kill rate over time in a population that has comorbidities.
That might not pass.
Gonna shelf that a little bit. Not gonna do it. So, and what the data showed, because she's gone over this with me, and I can talk about it, because that way she's not compromising herself. But what the data showed with this mRNA concept is that if you were in the age of fertility, basically from birth to about 50 years old, you should never have one of these. If you're over the age of 62, you should never have one of these. Now, if you're between the ages of 50, basically, and 62, and you have any comorbidities, or if at any of those other points you have any comorbidities, you should never have one of those shots. They knew this a long time ago. We fast forward a little bit to about 2019. And things are starting to get interesting. My wife was over in Ukraine and was with a bunch of Chinese people, and they were sick. And then she came back in like August, September. I think it was September. And she was really sick for like 4 days. And my wife doesn't stop working. And she was in bed for like 4 days.
Damn.
I'm like, what the fuck is this? What is going on? She's like, I don't know. I think I got a virus. So we got her taken care of. And then our son, who is I think he was a freshman and sophomore in high school. He's an elite basketball player. Oh, and he got sick and couldn't practice. And the coaches are like, what is going on with you? What is going on? He comes down from his bedroom one morning, and he takes his shorts off, and he's like, because he's my stepson, so it's awkward. No diddy. And he takes his shorts off. He's like, look at this. And he's basically got a cauliflower growing on his crotch for just huge fungal infection. I'm like, well, shit, one, you need to wash that shit, bro. He's like, look at this. I'm like, oh, this is not good. So we send him to Vandy. You know, they do a bunch of tests. They're like, he's got a virus, but we don't know what it is. We've never seen this stuff before. Well, we know what to do. So then we treated it and did a bunch of our stuff and got rid of it. We're like, what in the hell is this?
What the fuck?
So things start progressing a little bit, and she's been to China. She worked in Wuhan, you know, in her career. Was working with the Chinese government, setting up surgical centers and spine surgery. Go figure. Which we'll go back to that with what the data actually showed. But she's been over there working with the top neurosurgeons in the country, working with the government. She's done tours over there, and she had been invited to go back to Wuhan or go to Costa Rica about 8 years ago to work on some retrovirus work to deal with some stuff that was coming. This is what she was told, and she's like, kids were younger. She's like, I'm not going back to China because given what I know and what I do, I won't come back, and I'm not going to go down there, and I'm not going to leave the family.
Yep.
So we get to see all these things starting to happen. And from 2018 to 2020, she was in Harvard's nanotechnology and bioscience engineering program just to catch up on stuff, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Always get it. Yeah.
Go back to Harvard and do nanotechnology and bioscience engineering. There's like 19 people in the program. It's all military, biotech, and research. And I got to audit because they let her do everything from home. So I got to watch and listen. There's some smart friggin' people.
I bet.
But 2020 starts to come around, and you hear conversations of this whole COVID thing, and you know that they're creating a vaccine. And you've got 19 of the smartest people in the game that are all conspiring, working in class. So they start talking about this. Like, one, you never vaccinate in a live viral environment because you'll create mutations like crazy.
So fast. Like, never. Like, we've known this for a long time.
Before,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what if you can get an adoption rate of like 70% of the population? So you're not getting one mutation, you're getting, I don't know, 200 million mutations all simultaneously. This is kind of dope. So they're like, you cannot do this. And you sure as fuck are not going to use these mRNA vaccines because the data that's already been done on those and what they know and what's been published knows that that shit's a chimera. And it'll kill everything, especially in a compromised population. And if you do multiple vaccines, you're going to give someone AIDS because you have an acquired immune deficiency syndrome. So they're like, yeah, that's never going to happen. They'll never do this. The government's never going to do this because they know all the data. And then they said, we're not going to do that. No, we're going to do it at warp speed. Going, oh my God, no.
8 times.
Yeah.
9 times.
Some people,
right?
And, you know, being able to be knowledgeable. And we launched Root on February 2nd of 2020.
Oh, wow.
With our first 3 products, which were later very quickly shown to reverse all of the damage from what was being injected, because your C-reactive protein goes through the roof, your pro-BMP goes through the roof, your AST and ALT goes through the roof. Some of our collaborating docs that were working with elite athletes, you know, over in Europe, got rid of it in like 30 to 60 days. Like, okay, this is pretty dope.
Wow.
And because she knew, okay, here's how we need to address this, but we got to do it from a nutraceutical standpoint, because you can take nature and use quantum physics and bioscience engineering in a good way and do good stuff. But you go, we knew this all along. And if it wasn't predicated on making money and maybe one other thing, we wouldn't be in this situation. We wouldn't be here right now. Everybody would have gotten sick for a week. And well, that was nasty.
That was a new one.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Oh, man. I couldn't smell stuff for a week. And like, went to the bathroom, smelled my finger, didn't know what was going on.
It was kind of nice.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute, I'm good. Don't have to wash my hands. All right, let's go. You're like, nope, sorry. That's not how it is. Take this, do this, do this. And if you're deceived, you will choose poorly and you're going to deal with the consequences. And we've had I've had close friends of ours that have known us for a long time. We're like, don't do it. Don't do it. Like one of our really good friends, she had breast cancer. She had a double mastectomy a long time ago, and actually patented a product for called the shower shirt to basically protect a port when you're in the shower. And she's been a medical reporter for a long time.
Cool.
And because she wanted to go on cruises, she got her 2 shots. Well, now she's had 7 to 10 mini strokes and all these complications. And you go, you want to question why?
Yeah.
Like, you knew what the data was. We had these conversations. You knew what was going to happen. You have all the comorbidities. And
it's a scary place to be,
deal with
man.
the consequences.
It's a scary place to be. I unfortunately had to get, like, I was going on a cruise, and it was either, I had somebody, there's a doctor in some state, and we're not going to say where. He was like, well, yeah, and I was so concerned at the time. And I was like, I don't know that this is like...
Intuition is a pretty good thing.
It is. But I think I didn't want to get... I was like, oh shit, this is a federally illegal thing that we're doing, which is cool, but at the same time, like...
It's a piece of paper.
It is just a piece... That's it. That's all it is. It's just a fucking piece of paper.
So then you think about that. It's like, this thing is so bad and so terrible, and this needs so much control that we're good with a piece of paper? I'm like, Nazis did that. They killed a lot of people too. They said, can I see your papers?
Papers.
Get some ink?
Yep.
Go here. We'll give you a free train ride. Get a
Just
free
papers.
shower. We'll give you a couple snacks. You get to work real hard for a little bit. Then we'll show you the oven.
It's crazy.
You know they did that in China too?
I didn't know that they did. I didn't know they did that in China.
Yeah, back in 2019.
No shit.
Yeah, so what happened? This whole Wuhan, well, I'll give you the synopsis of the story that we got from one of my wife's friends that's a neurosurgeon. The top neurosurgeon over in China is also part of the CCP. He's a general in the CCP. So there's all these conspiracies that this was born in a lab. It was born in a lab.
I was going to say, are they conspiracies?
Yeah. Trust me, it was made in a lab. But it wasn't made in a lab. And this is what's really important. It wasn't made in a lab. Right? And I don't argue with my wife because she's smarter than I am. But she's like, do people, because she's been to most of these places because of what she's done. She's like, do people not understand that there's these bioweapons research labs all over the world? They're in Ukraine, they're in Russia, they're in China, they're in India. There's some in the United States, but the United States has moved them outside of the United States so they can do more gangster research. Like, fuck. She's like, like CRISPR and everything. You can go to Cyprus and actually have a designer baby made. The Chinese do
100%.
it. 200 grand, 250 grand, have a designer baby.
Yep.
I'm like, huh. I want my baby to look like a Kardashian.
Why wouldn't
There you
you?
And the Kardashians might do that too. You never know.
Honestly, maybe people already have. I guarantee.
Oh no, there's lots of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of these kids, and like you go look at Wembenyana and you go,
You're too perfect.
I don't know if you can be 7'6" and move like a guard.
Yeah.
Maybe just maybe. But she gets this. So it's March. We launched February 2nd. It was spring break 20. I think it was like March 13th or something like that. So we're in Florida. We're in the Panhandle. She's in Miami. She's driving over to come connect us. And then this whole lockdown thing starts. So she gets text messages from a friend in China and also another doctor that she knew in Italy saying, this is what's coming. This is what's happened. And so this doctor in China writes this manifesto to her on WhatsApp. And she reads it to me. I'm like, you need to save that. And my wife doesn't understand some of the aspects of what goes on behind the scenes, just because she's made to do a specific thing and she's so focused on that. But he writes this manifesto of begging for forgiveness for what he was part of. That the Chinese were working in conjunction with the CIA on an aerosolable retrovirus that they could spray over a population that would decrease IQ and cause you to become schizophrenic and psychotic. That way, in China, if they did that, and they were looking at doing this over Hong Kong because of the Hong Kong uprising and the riots, and you can't shoot them all because then it looks bad on TV. But if they go crazy, you can just lock them up. So they created this aerosol, and they tested it. So they took in some of their dissidents, some of the geniuses that were against the party, some of the musicians, artists, and people that were protesting, a few of them. Brought them in, exposed them to what they were working on. And in 2 weeks, it worked really good. Everybody their IQs dropped, and they went crazy. And then they started bleeding out of every orifice. And they died really quickly. And they went, oh, shit. That's a chimera. And he was saying that, the Chinese was doing this research with the CIA when the Chinese found out that this stuff was doing what it was not doing what it was intended to do, and it did what it was intended to do.
Plus.
And it did a little extra bonus. They're like, we can't release this. This stuff is a chimera. If this gets out, it's going to kill everybody because you can't stop this thing.
Yeah.
So they told the CIA, and and he put in there that we were working in conjunction with the CIA and the deep state. He put this in the text. My wife's like, what's the deep state? I'm like, don't worry about it, babe. I got that part covered. We don't need to worry about that part. So he's like, they were trying to lock it up. The CIA paid somebody to smuggle out a couple of vials. They were doing this in a food market in Wuhan, and Chinese military found out that the drop was going to take place, intervened. There was a shootout, like 12 people got shot, and the guy that was supposed to be delivering the vials dropped one. Mission Impossible can't write this frickin' story.
Yeah.
Right. So dropped it. It gets released. So the little bit that we saw that was going on over there was a very small part of the narrative, because we saw that they were putting people in psych wards and they were building hospitals really quickly. Well, what they were doing was building asylums really quickly, because people got infected and they went nuts, and then they were dying, and they were becoming infectious really, really quickly. So what they had to do, as soon as they got ahead of this, like really quickly, because they started killing everyone that was infected. They didn't wait for them to progress to get to a point where they were dying.
bleeding.
They just knew it's like, if you were infected, that was it. And he asked for forgiveness from my wife. He's like, I had a 25-year-old girl that came in. She was sick and she was just begging to die. He said, so I shot her because it was the most humane thing I could do as a doctor.
Wow.
And then the military found out about it and made him pay for the bullet. You go, that's not good.
That's wild.
And he's like, this is how we got ahead of it. And then we were able to cut that off. So this whole thing about the Wuhan virus, that's not what was released, because if that got out, we're not here right now. We got that taken care of. There was other stuff that was released because they've got research going on in Wuhan. There's research going on in Costa Rica. There's research going on in Ukraine. So these scientists, you've got some really smart people and some moderately smart people that are doing research in different areas, but they're siloed. Right? So they're not told what they're working on. But when they're done with their research and they're like, well, I did this, and this is really cool because this is what I was paid. I got a grant and I got to do this and I did this research. Then that research is taken somewhere else to go along with research that someone else did and say, now if we combine this because they did this and we combine this and now we make this and we got this super virus. And maybe we'll just throw it out there and we'll see what happens. Or maybe it's nefarious. Maybe it's not even that bad. It's just how you want to play the narrative so you can do something else. And
they are several steps ahead. They knew they needed to push some vaccine. And they needed some extra revenue. And so they're like, well, how do we get that done? Well, we already have these things that are set in place. So then we can go ahead and use this. And if we use this, then we're going to create maybe less IQ, or we're going to have less fertility. We're going to have higher rates of
docile
prostate.
And controllable people are easier to manage.
100%. Higher prostate risks. I mean, kids that are just dying from heart attacks, just... Kids, 15 years old, healthy kids.
Kids with they now have mental health issues. They identify as being a cat and they need to be medicated.
It's a problem. It's
1 in 7 kids is going to be autistic. Okay, great. So we got those. So how do we bump that up? How do we get another 30, 40% of them? Well, you just don't feel right. It's okay to not be okay. There's a pill for that. You know what? Here's some SSRIs. We'll keep you numb. We're not going to actually solve the dysbiosis in your gut and give you the opportunity to feed your gut what it needs to make dopamine and serotonin so you can feel good again. Let's just make you a zombie. And then we're going to show you a show about being a fucking zombie, and you're going to watch that and you're going to think that's cool. That's The Last of Us. You seen that?
I haven't actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to. I want to play the game at the very least. I do play video games.
So
I would love to.
all you have to do is watch the first 3 minutes of the first episode of the first season.
Okay.
Because they drop the greatest truth on the population to know what's actually happening. And not many people knew what they were showing. But if you watch, you can YouTube this. I don't have a link for it. We could monetize it. We'll just make it our own link. Watch it right here.
Yeah, somewhere down here.
Watch down here. We'll put the link down here, but we got to do a new one so we can monetize it. Watch The Last of Us, the intro to The Last of Us. And it's basically a television interview where they have a couple scientists talking about, the problem's going to be viral. No. Are they bacterial? No. Oh, okay, so great. What's the problems that face humanity? They're fungal. And the scientist then walks over, and one of the guys is like, well, yeah, but, mycelia, and mushrooms, they can't grow fungus can't grow like that because, of the environment and the temperature, and they're temperature specific. And then the other scientist goes, yeah, but if there was any climate change and the climate just changed a little bit, would cause a mutation in all of these, and they could change. And this is what fungus does in the environment. This is how different mycelial cultures will work in insects and humans.
Fungus is amazing.
It's,
scary.
And it's scary what it does.
Yeah.
Right. And so my wife was working with Doctors Rex and Rinaldi. She's got an interesting path of why she's here and what she's learned. But these are the two top researchers in dementia and Alzheimer's. And so they were doing necropsies on patients that had died really quickly from aggressive Alzheimer's and dementia. So they cut off their skulls. They were already dead. It's okay. No animals were harmed in the making of that research. So they cut off the skulls of these people, and they have literal mushrooms growing in their brain. There you go. Well.
How weird.
I think we know what caused the problem here. That's not good. And so is it not funny that we now have this campaign of everybody eating different kinds of mushrooms and what they can do? And they don't understand that psilocybin and different things, mushrooms grow in shit. Right? So if you're loaded with it because your gut is all screwed up and you've got all this other dysbiosis and fungal dysbiosis, it's quite possible that those things are going to start growing in you, and they won't kill you.
Yeah.
they'll control you, right? So, and that's with penicillin, and penicillin will grow in a tree. That fungus will grow in a tree. It won't kill the tree. It will consume the tree, and it'll keep the tree alive so it can keep growing.
100%.
And you go,
how fun. They do control things.
huh.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Where are we at as a society? And that was the big thing of understanding. People are talking about parasites now, right? But they don't understand that parasites are like cockroaches and rats, right? So if you have a cockroach or a rat problem in your house, you don't have a cockroach and a rat problem. Your house is a cesspool. You need to clean your house. And if you clean your house, no cockroaches, no rats, because they won't stick around because
there's no food.
No food source.
Yeah.
You got no place to
Pretty
hang
simple.
out. This ain't hard. So if you address the heavy metals, the environmental toxins that create the environment for the dysbiosis that allows the proliferation of fungus, and the overgrowth of fungus allows the environment for parasites to grow and breed and feed, you don't have a parasite problem. Don't go after parasites, because parasites are like baby's kids.
No matter.
They don't die. They multiply.
Fair.
So you can't try to kill them, because if you don't kill all of them, they realize that you're trying to kill them, and then they're just going to breed faster. And some of these people that are showing stuff on the internet, I killed all these parasites. Look at what I'm flushing out. Bad day, bro. Bad day. This is not going to bode well.
I got to tell you something real quick, because I think you might appreciate it. When I was doing research several years ago, and we looked at a specific dopamine receptor inside the brain and how it interacted with what we consumed. So it was like kind of about 10-ish years ago, maybe a little bit longer, looking at fecal matter transplants.
Mm-hmm.
And we took a healthy rat and they're on a chow diet versus a rat on a Western style diet. So high fat, high sugar diet. And then chow, for those that it's just what that specific breed is designed to eat. And so we had them run on the treadmill for over several months, and we could obviously see that these guys were moving less, right? The unhealthy diet. And then we took the fecal matter from each individual and just replaced it. We swapped. And then the results swapped. These people were they looked good.
The
right?
rats looked good, but
they were running
became
like
lethargic.
They became lethargic versus our opposite group was big old rats that were like
Supercharged.
They just love to do it. And then so we there's this dopamine receptor in the brain that's directly associated with what's happening in our gut that's been proven for a while now. And
that's just one.
Yeah. There's a
couple. There's more than one.
Yeah. And so we were looking at the specific one, and it was just really cool to see such an immediate effect take place from just such a simple change of diet. And
diet, but even looking at the fecal transplant aspect, which is something that's really interesting in the human component.
Because we do that now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Some people do, and it's very beneficial. So is this a new way of dating, that a fat guy can find a really fit girl and go, yo, I need some of your shit?
100%.
Like
100%.
Not on me, in me.
In me, yes.
Let's go.
There's somebody, I forget, there's a documentary on Netflix. I forget what it was called.
Oh, God, no.
But this girl was having some issues with her stomach. And so she took her boyfriend's poop and like blended it up, put it inside of vegetable capsules. And then just started taking those capsules. And then she got severely depressed. And she was like, what's going on? I don't really understand it. And then he's like, well, he has depression. And so now I have depression. How weird. It's like, isn't fecal matter interesting?
Like,
isn't what happens to your gut really kind of cool with what happens up here?
Gut-brain connection, maybe? Your vagus nerve is going, hey, I'm the information superhighway here. You might want to pay attention.
Oh, it's so cool. It's so fun.
That's the fun things of diving into that and then looking at how we can change. And doing coffee enemas just to clean stuff out and clean out your liver. But the fecal transplant piece, it's interesting. When we look at the fecal transplant aspect, right? Then when you look at toxic relationships, right? And cellular communication, and you go, do you really want the crazy chick? Or ladies, do you really want the narcissistic crazy dude? You know, he might look good, might make some money, he might give you some stuff, but you're going to go nuts over time.
You are literally going insane.
Yeah.
Like, your cells don't know what to do. I think that there's a lot of value to this understanding of I think it was always called maybe like a vibe, right? Like, we're vibing. And like what that is that we are frequency.
Yes.
And so
we're a big bundle of light, and that's all it is.
That's it. That's all we are.
like-
And so if we happen to like match up and we're jiving to get like,
That's electromagnetism,
yes.
right? And people go, wait, what? It's like you have an aura, you have chakras, you have doshas, you have meridians. Those are all scientific facts. It's like, look, we don't have to argue those anymore. Those are very well established, very well proven. You can measure them all through heart rate variability, right? So it's like, okay, you have that data. So what does that mean? You're electrical. The interesting part, like your aura, when you're healthy, goes out about 3 feet. Now, would it not be interesting that we could create a campaign and tell people to stay 6 feet apart?
Isn't that weird? What a weird number. What a weird number to choose.
3, 6,
I'm 3, you're 3.
9. God, I don't get it. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a smart guy. But I'm going, wait a minute. If, then, how? That's pretty good. I give them credit for that because they did it. They did it pretty good. They show you the truth. They don't tell you the whole story. They're like, you have to do this. Why 6 feet? I mean, it's like 6-minute abs. And why not 5-minute abs?
Why?
But what if we go crazy? What if we do 4-minute abs? Like, no, 5-minute.
They can't comprehend that number.
It's like,
6.
It's got to be 6-minute abs. Okay, but then when you look at the whole OnlyFans thing, because we probably just gave somebody an idea on an OnlyFans thing, they start selling their poop in a bag, and the people start.
Oh, I'm sure
somebody's got to be doing
right.
This.
Surely
You won't be doing it with me.
I'm not buying it.
I'm not on there. You won't find it. You won't find the AI version of me. Any of that stuff.
If you see me, it's not me.
It ain't me. Hashtag not like us. But the understanding of our physiology, of where we are and what we can do and do it in the right ways. I mean, we're at this unique precipice. I've told people for years that we're at the beginning of this ascension event and a simultaneous extinction event. That if you look at what's going on across the world, some cultures are not going to be here in 3 generations. They're not breeding.
Yeah.
One of those is ours. Whoops.
Japan.
In Japan,
Ours.
They're pretty much done.
Uh-huh.
It's like, guys, and the crazy part is you look at how they've been programmed over there. You go, you need to keep breeding. But then all the youngins are like, yeah, but we have sex with robots and it's great.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Do robots take over? Like, is it the robot that's communicating to us?
I
You know?
don't. So
This is like super tin hat. I'm sorry, but
so
like,
let me give you the other side of the scenario. It's not
Okay.
it's not the robot aspect, but this is coming from a royal family member in the UAE. So he's got access to information. He's got means, and he's really focused on the health aspect and the environmental component. And I was over with him. I was at his family compound in end of last year, and with him and his right-hand guy, and we're having chit-chat on geopolitics and different stuff, having coffee and tea, and it's really cool. It was like,
good tea, I'm sure.
Oh
Good
my
coffee,
God.
but great tea.
his mom made the tea, so it was a combination of like 5 or 7 different things, and some milk.
Oh,
So
that sounds really nice.
yeah. It's the difference of actually sitting down and having tea and having coffee the way that it was made to be done.
100%.
And so we were chatting, and I forgot how the topic came up. I think we were talking depleted uranium and what was going on. Yeah, what had gone on in the Gulf War, because Gulf War syndrome and all the issues that we have in the Middle East right now are caused by depleted uranium. And we won't talk about why or who did all the depleted uranium rounds that were used in the Gulf War, because that would be worse than Agent Orange, and we're not ready for that yet. But
Are we not?
we're not there yet. They know over there. They're like, this is the problem, and we're going to work to address it. But we're chatting about some of these things, and he stopped me. He looked at me, and he's like, dead cold. Like, you understand that your country was hijacked on September 11th and is run by Satanists, correct? And I went, yes. But if I say that at home, I'm a conspiracy theorist. You guys over here know it to be a fact. And you're dealing with it. He's like, the American people are not the problem. America is not the problem. The problem is you guys have been hijacked by a bunch of Satanists. And then when you apply healthcare decision making, the media, Hollywood, music. And we're starting to see all of this stuff start to bubble and boil, right? It's not like it's that smooth underlying layer that's just been
Not at
doing
all.
stuff for a while. And then Cat Williams comes out and says, "This is what's going to happen, bitches."
It's loud.
And you're not gonna like it. You're not gonna deal with it very well. And when you start to see it in one area and then you start to see it bubble up in other areas, you better start paying attention, because it is truly, and especially from a health standpoint, the one thing that I've learned a lot in my career is you have the physical, you have the psychological, you have the spiritual, you have the emotional. And for guys, we want to put them in boxes because that's how we function, right? It's like, I'm just going to deal with the physical. I'm going to eat right and I'm going to go to the gym. Great. Well, guess what? More to it. Because it's not one at a time. It's everything all at once. What was that quantum physics action movie? It's like everything at one time, all at once. Everything everywhere all at once.
There you go. Yeah. I love that film.
Like,
that was great.
It's made for us, right? Because you got 27 things going on. You're like, this is better.
Good.
It's like Pulp Fiction on crack. It's like, this is outstanding.
It was fantastic.
But when you understand that we are all these things and that we're being manipulated on multiple angles, to be controllable. Because if those of us that understand our source and know where we come from and work to become who we are made to be, right? And that's why my mantra from a corporate standpoint is just to create greatness, because that's what we're made in the image of. That's what we are. I mean, we're light. Light's fucking great.
It's pretty amazing,
right? It does a lot of shit.
Really cool shit.
It's infinite. It goes
infinite.
everywhere. It can do crazy stuff. It creates illumination. So the Illuminati is not the small group of people. It's us becoming what we're supposed to be.
What a word. What a statement.
But when you get a population that starts to do that, and you've got some that have chosen the dark side, was Star Wars trying to tell us some shit? You've got those that have chosen the dark side, and we've been taught since we were children to fear the dark. Right? It's like, oh, don't go outside there at night. There's bad things, creatures that get you. Werewolves are out at night. Vampires out at night. All this. You saying that there's reptilians and I don't know, anyway.
They're out there.
Oh yeah, they're there. But
I like Mitch Hedberg. Sorry, Mitch Hedberg, who's like, I think what's his name?
I love Mitch.
Bigfoot is just a blurry. That's the problem. He's just a blurry guy that's walking around. He's out there, but he's just blurry.
Crazy note on that. So my wife did a podcast a couple weeks ago with Izzy, who's the chief. He's the chief of the Sioux tribe.
Oh, very cool. How wild.
Really cool cat.
A wealth of knowledge, wisdom.
Massive knowledge.
Wow.
Wisdom and history.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of times in podcasts, it's the stuff that's not put on tape that happens while you're recording that's kind of cool. So he starts talking. They're talking about fasting and health and how they'll go up in the mountain and do the sweat lodge for like 4 days, and they'll fast for 4 days. So he says, look, if you go up to the mountaintop in the Black Hills where they are, and if you sit and you fast for 4 days, Bigfoot will come to you, because there's like 1,000 of them. They live underground, and if you fasted and you're balanced, they'll come hang out. And he goes, they want to see you, because they're not from here. They're a different species, and they know you're not from here either. And so he starts going into some of the conversations that he's had with Bigfoot. He said, they're waiting for us to figure our shit out. They're hanging out underground because they know we're screwing all this stuff up, and we're not ready to communicate. So they're just biding their time.
How interesting.
And she's going, should we put all of this out? So they edit it down a little bit, of him just talking about sitting down with Bigfoot, but not the, hey, you know what? They're waiting.
Yeah.
They're going, you guys are going to figure this out eventually. If not, we're going to reset it. Not them, but it's going
the
game's going to be reset again.
It will clean itself.
Yeah.
Whether we figure it out or not, like, it's going to reset itself.
And use a bunch of water to wash the board.
Yeah. It's gone.
I think it's happened before. maybe a couple times. There's a lot of mud in a lot of places that there were buildings that are underground, and there's underground infrastructure that's already just in place to go, well, if they screw it up, then we'll go hide underground for a little bit. Everybody else will die, and then we'll come back over here. We get a clean slate.
I have two more questions for you. I think and then we probably should skedaddle a little bit. Oh man, yes, 2 kind of 3. So damn it, sorry, I'm excited about the 3. So the first one is, I guess the mTOR pathway, and if you have any like background on mTOR's pathway at all.
mTOR,
the protein synthesis pathway.
Okay. Oh, this is an interesting. It's an interesting way that we've had to address it. Of when we look at protein synthesis, right? We've looked at meat and the importance of beef. You know, beef was the original performance enhancing substance.
Hell yeah, it was.
Amazing. I was in Athens.
Still is amazing.
Oh god, it used to be outstanding. Now it's still pretty good.
Sure, fair.
But we'll hit on that real quick with the best beef, and it's not grass fed. My wife's working on the Human Genome Project, and one of the primary causes of colon cancer, grass-fed beef.
Really?
Grass-fed butter.
Huh.
You know why?
Why?
Glyphosate.
Huh.
It's in everything.
Wow.
So if you've got the cows eating just grass, they're getting a higher concentration of glyphosate, and so what we think is really good for us is actually the worst.
Wow.
But best beef in the world. We know that Wagyu beef is outstanding, right?
It is.
Japanese Wagyu beef, better than everything else. But do you know why? It's not the beer and the massages.
The high fatty content?
Yeah, but why? What creates it?
What creates
So there's Clean Slate, our little detoxifying substance that we make, uses a specific zeolite in the best source available. So this little clinoptilolite substance has been used for basically from the beginning of time when the planet was being terraformed to clean up the environment. But it's in its powdered form is used in animal feed and for environmental cleanup, but they feed the cows a little bit of, well, they put it on their grain and their feed every day. So it's actually detoxifying the cows. So they're actually cleaning them. So their nitrogen output decreases, and this is all clinically proven. Their lean mass increases. The fat becomes better rendered because of then what they're doing. But you've got cleaner cows, you've got healthier cows, you've got better tasting meat that's unlike anything else on the planet, because it doesn't matter if it's American Wagyu or Australian Wagyu. There's nothing that compares with Japanese Wagyu beef. That's the differentiator, because they're cleaning them up. And that's why you can eat like 3 or 4 ounces of Japanese Wagyu beef. You're good. Or you're going out to get American, you're like, I need 30 ounces of steak. Like, I'm real good.
Yeah.
But the problem that we faced is now our food supply, even from a beef standpoint, doesn't have the amino acid profile that's necessary for proper metabolism, right? And it's completely polluted and completely toxic. So understanding that and understanding the pathways, Christina put together a combination of essential aminos and peptides with some HMB and phytoplankton, a specific proprietary phytoplankton that's giving the body everything that it would have traditionally gotten, plus some bonuses from eating really good meat, to give it what it needs. But instead, it's already broken down, it's already synthesized, and it's like, here, you can use it. And so the way that she's created those mechanisms has been a way of bypassing the toxicity and the chaos, because one of the things that we've seen is you have nutrients, you have calories. We've always been taught you need calories. We don't need calories. We need nutrients. And you can create the mechanisms through specific extracts or a combination of ingredients to get all the nutrients you need with very, very low caloric intake. And then if you do that, you've got the foundation that your body needs from a performance standpoint, and then you can eat to supplement what you're already building as your foundation. It's kind of a back way of looking at it. But it's important because there's so much dysbiosis in the environment and in our system. Metabolically, we're all jacked up. Most people are insulin resistant in the United States because of everything that's in us. So you've got to regulate, and that's don't talk to me about fucking Ozempic and everything else, right? GLP-1s, get the fuck out of here. But being able to regulate insulin, block sugar consumption, so you're resetting your endocrine system and then allowing the metabolic pathways to start working properly is really what's important. So it's a really complex process to a simple question saying, okay, how do we do this? I'm like, well, big pathway.
Yeah.
And probably didn't answer it very well.
I think that was perfect. I think that was great. That's how you guys manage it, is to ultimately clean up a individual's system so that they can actually intake the nutrients.
They can start
need.
using what they're getting. It's if you look at it as an expensive, performance vehicle, you got to clean out the car. Do they still have carburetors? I don't know. But clean out the fuel injectors, clean out everything, upgrade spark plugs, everything else. Make sure that, pistons are firing properly. Then you're going to give it the right oil. Then you're going to put in the right transmission fluid, and you're going to make sure the gas tank's always full. Yeah. And it's going to run like nothing you've ever imagined, versus just letting it sit, never changing the oil, never changing anything out, and trying to run it on the 16th tank of gas. Yeah. I mean, that's the difference of, where we sit. And I think the important part for elite athletes, and we've seen this in case studies, is we've got this max for performance that we kind of hit, and it's very similar to the glass ceiling that we've seen in women in business, that they've talked about. It's like, okay, you can attain this level, but you're just going to bump up against it. You don't get to go. That if you have someone that's insanely elite in what they do, and it could be sprints, it could be powerlifting, it can be basketball, football, baseball, it doesn't matter. If you start taking away all of the mess that exists when all of us, and you start feeding these extra tools, you open up a level of performance that we've never seen before, right? And from like an anatomy and physiological perspective of seeing reaction time in like world champion athletes improve by 40 to 50% in a couple of weeks, and you go, wait a minute, cocaine doesn't do that. You can't use cocaine every day because it'll kind of ruin your weekend. But being able to see that naturally, and then understanding how that neurotransmitter aspect plays into the equation of, okay, if you're an elite athlete, because watching professional sports is kind of boring, honestly, right? 82 games in basketball.
I don't watch.
Either do I.
Yeah.
I like to watch the playoffs, and I only watch about the last 5 minutes of the game. Yeah. Because it's not about what they've done, it's about what they don't do. I want to see someone shit themselves on the court. I want to see the guys that are so well trained that when the pressure is put on, they collapse. That's entertaining.
That's pretty cool.
Right? And that's all neurotransmission. Right? You're depleted. You've done this. You don't have it in you. How are you going to handle the pressure when you don't have it? But then what happens when you have those guys that do have it? And then maybe you're lived in an environment where you could bet on it. Then it's entertaining. Then it's fun.
100%.
But
all right, last question. Where can people find you, and what is Root? What is Root? Where can people find you?
So I'm on the line. I think Instagram, but the easiest way to if you want really massive content, go to YouTube, look up the Root brands. Don't look up me up. I got 6 followers on social media, and 4 of them don't like me.
Great.
What is Root? Root is a direct-to-consumer lifestyle brand, we'll say, that's focused on 2 things: creating greatness in all aspects of life, but having a nanotechnologist and bioscience engineer that took the approach to take care of herself and family first and say, look, I've got access to whatever I want to do because there's no restrictions from quality, for humans, animals, environmental, coffee, and skincare. And did it better than what's ever been done before. Right? And we have that proven. What I got to do in that part was build an algorithmic fintech system around social commerce, because I come from a very, very, very small town and watched my parents invest in their community and have listened to the talking points. And we know, as we were talking about initially, that we're all connected, right? Our words have massive power, and our data and our content has been farmed by those that want to control it all, and have stolen all the money, right? So if each of us is of great value, then companies should actually just invest in that. So I built a fintech system. Initially, everybody thought I was crazy 5 years ago, because we let it loose and said, look, if you like the products, you're going to buy them, just like Amazon did. Because I grew up in South of Seattle, and got to watch Amazon, Costco, Microsoft, Starbucks, weird, all be born, right? And Amazon said, great, create an account. You can get used books for less and we'll ship them to you. And then people started doing that and they liked the experience and they told all their friends. And then that expanded. And that's pretty much what happens anymore with anything. Like if we wanted to start something new, we could just start talking about it, talk about how great it is, post a link and tell everybody, hey, get this. And a lot of people would buy it.
Yeah.
But that leaves out the biggest part, because once you do that, if you know that every business is going to spend 40 to 50% of their top line revenue on advertising and marketing, why not take that money and just put it in people, right? So if you invest in the people, if your customers create value for you, give it to them. And that's root. And because of my wife's background in biotech, we've had the clinical case studies and research registries tracking outcomes, because you have to have the data now. We're past the point of hype and bullshit, right? Like we were talking about. You can get along with bullshit for a little bit. It doesn't last for a long term. And if we're really going to change the healthcare system and we're going to do this whole thing of really changing the system, and we've got, I've got close friends that are like the chief medical officer at Humana, and I've had this conversation with them. I'm like, look, end-stage renal failure and cancer are your two biggest expenses. I'm not going to touch cancer because they'll kill me over touching the cash cow. But if we can take people off of, the dialysis, or decrease the number of dialysis treatments they're doing weekly, because we can have their kidneys start functioning because you just clean out the filter, what would you guys do? And he's like, if you can show us the data, we'll do one of two things. We'll acquire you to make it part of what we do, or we'll put you on formulary. But you have to prove it. You have to give us the data, not talk about it and hype it.
Yeah.
So that's been the key of having the clinical efficacy, having the intellectual property and the patents. Like autism's a big thing now, right? Bobby's talking about it in the Senate. But my wife filed for a patent on the treatment and reversal of autism in September of last year, because we've proven that we reverse it. We have the protocols to say, if you do this, this, and this, that goes away. Nonverbal kids become exceptional, start talking, communicating, go to college, do all their stuff. If they're younger, they become crazy, fun little kids again. Colon cancer, here's a patent on the treatment of colon cancer. Well, how can you file for a patent on colon cancer treatment? You have to show that you have clinical outcomes and you've done it. So there's this science aspect, but then there's the humanity aspect of, you've got to put those two things in front of people, and you got to give it to them if they want to create it. You need health, you need wealth, and that's where we go. So there'll be a link below.
Yeah, click the link. Awesome. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks
this
for
was awesome.
having me.
Yeah, man.
We rambled.
Yeah, we did. We got to do this again.
But there will be more.
Cool. All right. Thank y'all. Love you.